I'm Thomas Smith, and today I'm going to be talking about using ChatGPT to complete or finish your blog post draft. So, if you're a blogger or any kind of writer, really, you probably know that you start a lot more drafts than you finish, and you probably have several drafts, maybe several hundred drafts sitting around that you've gotten a little bit into them. You've written some things; they're pretty good, but you just never sat down and finished them. And one of the cool things with ChatGPT is that it's a really good tool for finishing those drafts using AI, or at least maybe just sort of resolving that writer's block and kind of getting something on the page that you can go back and either edit or rewrite, but just to have something that keeps going so you don't just end with that terrifying blank page. So I'm going to give an example of how to do this, how to use ChatGPT to finish a draft. But firstly, if you're new to this whole concept, the first thing you want to do is create a ChatGPT account. You're going to go to chat.openai.com. You can sign up there, and you're going to want to subscribe to the premium service, ideally. So it's $20 a month for that, and really to have the system write something that's going to sound like you and be insightful, you need access to GPT-4. That's the newest version of ChatGPT. If you don't upgrade to premium, you're only going to have GPT 3.5. It's still good, but it's not nearly as good as GPT-4. So I would really recommend, pay that $20, do that upgrade. If you don't like it, you can always downgrade or cancel, but start out there, and you're going to sign in here. You're going to go into GPT-4. Again, make sure that's selected. It defaults to GPT 3.5. You want to go to GPT-4, and now we are ready to go over here. So now I'm going to go back here and choose a draft. This is a post I started writing several months ago, maybe 6 months ago, and it's all about how the color of nighttime has changed and why. And it was really interesting to me, but it doesn't quite fit with my normal sort of focus, so I didn't really get the time to do all the research and sit down and finish it, but I wrote the beginnings of an article. And that's important because one of the things that ChatGPT is good at is very quickly and effectively kind of figuring stuff out, figuring out a pattern based on some input that you give it. So if I just told it, write an article about how the color of nighttime is changing, maybe it would get the intent right, probably wouldn't get my voice at all, probably wouldn't be as interesting. But if I give it something, kind of a seed to plant, like the beginnings of a draft, it gets a lot from that. It gets the general tone and my style. It gets, what I'm going to talk about here and what the thesis is. And it's much better at finishing stuff than it is at just writing things totally without any prompting. So it's actually a great tool for finishing an article. So all I'm going to do is actually take this. I'm going to copy it. And then if you go over to ChatGPT, we're going to enter our prompts in here. And if you haven't done this before, you have to give it specific instructions. So here I'm going to say, I will give you a draft of a blog post that I started to write but didn't finish. Please finish the blog post mirroring my style, word choice, etc. Then I'm going to paste in the text. And then I'm going to hit go. And it's going to finish it. It's going to just start where I left off and type this out. And it's correctly figured out where I was going with the story, right? So the idea is that because we've switched to LED lighting instead of the traditional lighting that were sodium vapor lamps, now the color of the night is different because LEDs have a different color than the yellow color of the traditional lamp. So it figured it out. It made that key transition in the piece from talking about how things were to how things are today, and LED lights, naming that as the culprit. Now, if we look at the actual style in here, I think it's pretty close to my style. It's not super pedantic. It's technical. It's got a little humor mixed into it. I ask a lot of questions and then answer them in my writing. So I think this is actually pretty good. And again, it gets that pivot of the structure of the piece. It goes into the new direction. Some of it, like it overuses passive voice, for example, I think is a problem. But overall, it does a pretty good job. And then I could for example, take this and put it back into my blogging platform. Let's go ahead and do that. Do some formatting, add some headings into this, and I would have a finished piece here, basically. So again, there's a couple things you could do with this. You could just let it basically mimic your own writing and finish the piece for you. Or, you could take what it gave you and treat it almost like an outline and go in and say, okay, I'm going to, take what it gave me and I'm going to rewrite it totally in my own voice. You could even do other things, like I could say to ChatGPT, instead of finishing the post, provide me an outline for the rest of it. So maybe I'm having some writer's block and I wrote the first part. I want to know, okay, where do I go from here? I don't want it to write for me. I want to write for myself. But, here we go. Like it says, okay, it got the pivot to LED, how they have a daylight color instead of a color that's going to be correct for the night, light pollution, impact on people and wildlife, the future. So it kind of creates a nicely structured conclusion to the rest of the article here. So I could then dive in and do the research and write this without the AI assistance. Either way, both of those I think are fairly successful. But again, the key here is that you're planting that seed. You're giving it the beginnings of an article. You're letting it learn about your style, learn about your thesis, what you're talking about, and then finish it. And I think it did a pretty admirable job here of doing that.